Okay, let's just set the scene for you. Imagine this. You're the hiring manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a really critical opening on your engineering team. The candidate sitting across from you, we'll call him Tom, is he's clearly bright, a recent grad, but he is visibly terrified.
Hands shaking the whole thing.
His hands are shaking. You ask him to solve a technical problem up on the whiteboard, and he just struggles. He messes up the basics.
Yeah.
He can't solve the core problem. The clock runs out. Do you hire Tom?
I mean, 99% of managers, their gut instinct is going to be no.
Of course.
It's the safe option, the easy option.
Yeah.
You reject the flawed performance and you move on to the next person who, seemed a bit more polished. That's just standard practice.
Absolutely. But our source material for this deep dive, it tells the story of this exact candidate, Tom, who, demonstrably failed the test. But he was hired anyway.
And then what happened?
And then, within just a few years, he became the organization's, their rocket ship, their absolute star performer.
And that really is the paradox we're unpacking today. This whole discussion is built around this philosophical dialogue between a teacher and a student about recruitment.
Right.
And the central question, it really changes everything. Is recruitment about finding the best person in that 60-minute interview slice? Or is it about finding the person who will be the best over the next 6 years?
So our mission here is to move beyond that surface-level performance, what the source calls the show, and really dig into the qualities that predict long-term success. We're looking for the seed.
We're here to challenge that deep-seated belief that the quality of the interview equals the quality of the hire.
Okay, so let's unpack this story about Tom because it's so central to the whole philosophy. The source describes him as nervous, yeah, but also really earnest.
Right.
When he went up to the board to solve that problem, he didn't just struggle. He kind of showed his entire failure process to everyone in the room.
And that is the critical detail. Tom didn't try to save face. He didn't put on a performance. When he got completely stuck, the source calls it Bissy neck, he didn't panic or, try to fake his way through it.
What did he do?
He just went silent. He paused, and then he began this slow, almost painful process of talking his thoughts out loud, trying to self-correct, trying to work through it, even though it was obvious to everyone he was failing.
He wasn't acting. He was just real and raw. And in the end, he finished the interview without solving the whole problem.
Yeah. The source says he was visibly disappointed in himself. Objectively, it was a poor technical performance.
But the manager saw something completely different. Despite the obvious failure, they looked at Tom and just said, "You are hired."
And the source makes it clear that even the interviewer was surprised by their own decision. Rejecting Tom would have been the easy, defensible thing to do. They made a conscious bet against the data right in front of them.
So if it wasn't the performance, what was the specific sign they honed in on? What was that non-skill thing that mattered so much?
They saw what the source calls a very, very rare sign. It wasn't about raw brilliance. It was this combination of diligence and thoroughness and vadodo. The manager just had this insight. This person isn't failing because he's incompetent. He's failing because he's nervous. But look at how he approaches failure.
Right.
They saw the kind of person who wouldn't just give up. Tom was the type who would go home that night, open his notebook, and just work until 3 a.m. to find the solution because he couldn't stand leaving it unsolved. That persistence, that was the real signal.
And the payoff was just incredible. A few years later, he goes from this nervous newbie to leading the engineering team. He just took off.
Colleagues talked about him with this genuine respect. They said he was good, persistent, and thoughtful. He was the living proof that that smart bet paid off big time, all because a manager looked past the test score. The teacher in this dialogue, they admit recruitment always carries risk. It's never a guaranteed thing, but you can learn to bet wisely. And to make that wise bet, you first have to accept 3 really fundamental truths about why the traditional interview process so often leads us astray.
All right, let's break down these 3 hard truths. What's number 1?
Truth number 1. The interview environment, it just doesn't replicate real life. Real projects are messy, they're complex, they involve collaboration over months and months. That's what the source calls the long journey, the Hanatrin.
Right, but an interview is sterile. It's artificial. It's just a snapshot, a lot cut, a tiny slice. It's 1 hour under a microscope.
Exactly, and that distinction is so important. Some people are brilliant in that one slice. They interview perfectly, they have all the right answers ready, but they aren't built for the long, complex Hanatrin of a real project.
So their performance tanks after 6 months, even if they aced the 60-minute interview.
Precisely.
Okay, that makes sense. Truth number 2 hits on our biggest blind spot, this illusion of intuition. Managers love to say, I have a good gut feeling, or I can just read people.
Oh, absolutely. We all believe we're excellent judges of character. But the source warns that we're often just projecting our own biases. We mistake superficial things like a polished way of speaking, a great first impression, or just a compatible vibe, what they call hupka.
A good hang.
Yeah, a good hang. We mistake that for actual competence.
But hold on, what about experience? Doesn't a manager with 20 years of experience develop a reliable gut feeling?
That's a fair challenge. The source isn't saying experience is useless. It's saying you have to be super aware of what your gut is reacting to. Is it reacting to evidence of deep thinking, like with Tom, or is it just reacting to charm, to that hupka feeling?
I see.
Too often, what we call intuition is just a fancy name for confirmation bias. It's much safer to rely on observed behaviors than on a feeling.
That makes the shift so necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, and truth number 3. People change fast, especially new graduates.
That's right. 2 or 3 years of intensive real-world work can completely transform someone. Today's interview is a really poor predictor of tomorrow's potential. If a person has that seed, that capacity for growth, their trajectory will blow past someone who is polished now but stagnant.
So if you're only hiring to fill a gap, what the teacher calls the hungry gut approach.
You're always looking backward. You're prioritizing the past over the future.
Which brings us to the core insight. Don't just hire to solve a problem. You have to be hiring to open up a new future for the entire organization.
Yeah.
So the big question remains, if we can't rely on technical performance in the interview, how do we find the next Tom? The framework here rests on 3 pillars: vision, system, and yitters. Core qualities, or fein chut loin.
Right, and we need to touch on the first 2. Vision is the long-term goal. Where are we trying to go? What does success look like in 2 years? The system is what stops you from falling into the intuition trap. It means structured interview questions, scoring rubrics, defined protocols, all decided before the candidate walks in. If you don't have a system, you're just relying on that flawed gut feeling.
And that 3rd pillar, the core qualities, that's where we find Tom's secret. These aren't skills, they're behaviors.
Exactly. They weren't polish or smoothness ou bong bei. They were these traits rooted in humility. The source lists them out. Thinking aloud, making your process visible, daring to stop, daring to ask for help, daring to learn from mistakes, and, maybe most importantly, daring to follow through to the end dam lam tua kung.
I want to pause on daring to stop. That sounds so counterintuitive. Why is that a core quality?
Because the biggest costs in any organization come from realizing a mistake too late. The person who dares to stop is the one with the humility to say early on, hang on, I think I took a wrong turn here. They prevent a small error from turning into a massive disaster 6 months down the line. That humility is a superpower.
So these core qualities are the seed, the hajang. And the distinction is, look, skills can be taught to almost anyone.
Right. But it's the speed of growth, which is fueled by these qualities, that really designs the future. It just reframes the entire role of a manager. Recruitment isn't just firefighting. It's not just plugging a hole in the team.
It's about designing the future of the organization.
Yes. By planting the right seeds. If you aren't looking for those qualities, you're building your future on sand.
Okay, this framework then leads us to 7 very specific, actionable lessons for managers who want to start hiring this way.
And we should probably slow down and really absorb these. Lesson 1. Never, ever hire when you are hungry. When you are short-staffed, you get desperate. You start accepting candidates who are, as the source colorfully puts it, pickles and ketchup, duamui, votunka.
You tell yourself, it'll do for now.
Exactly. But your team isn't a temporary meal, it's your long-term health. That rushed hire almost always costs you more in the long run.
Okay, lesson 2. Draw a future map. This is about being strategic, not reactive.
Right. Every year you have to ask, what must this team look like by the end of the year to hit our goals? What person do we need to create a real leap in our ability, not just a small step? You hire based on the map, not on panic.
Lesson 3. Hiring is the manager's job.
It is the manager's ultimate responsibility. You cannot outsource your judgment. You can't just hand it to recruiters and wait for good people to show up. Great managers are always cultivating relationships, and they know how to correctly diagnose what their team actually needs.
Lesson 4. Prioritize evidence of action. This forces you to find proof of those core qualities.
Yes, stop asking, are you persistent?
Show me.
Show me, what projects have you actually finished? And crucially, how do you react when you get stuck?
The Kashfin Unkimat cut. The response to failure, that's the evidence.
Ooh, lesson 5 is a big warning. Avoid weak hiring. This is when everyone agrees there's no reason to reject the candidate, but nobody is actually excited to work with them. It's the danger of betting on neutrality, on blandness, son.
Right.
Don't bet on bland. Bet on the person who has a spark, who will make the team genuinely shine Song Lin.
Lesson 6 is a hard line. Immediately reject unhealthy people. Recognize the red flags.
The source is crystal clear on this. Bad-mouthing old colleagues, blaming circumstances for everything, arrogance. That stuff is organizational poison.
It just takes one.
One toxic person can destroy the atmosphere, the kitchet of the entire team. It's a survival mechanism to keep them out.
And finally, lesson 7. Hire better than your current need.
Within reason, of course. But your organization is growing. Today's need is just the entry door. A great hire will open up new doors and possibilities you haven't even imagined yet. You have to hire for the team you want to become.
So we started with this puzzle of Tom, the nervous grad who got the job, and we learned that the interview is just a slice, often clouded by the illusion of intuition. And that strategic hiring means shifting our focus from temporary skills to those core qualities that fuel real long-term growth.
And the teacher in our source material sums this entire philosophy up in one powerful line. The most important message for any manager is this. Tiren kumfai de jequit vunda, tinzung la lad mora motungle.
Hiring is not to solve a problem.
Hiring is to open a future.
And here's where it gets really, well, reflective. The source suggests that hiring is a way of practicing self-cultivation for the manager. Because the person you choose, you're not just choosing an employee.
No.
You're choosing the future trajectory and defining the moral character, the uncatch of your whole organization. Your choices literally shape its soul.
So the next time you look at a candidate, you have to ask yourself, are you just watching a perfect rehearsed performance? Or are you looking deeply enough past the nerves and the fumbles to find that resilient seed, that diligence and humility that promises to grow into the future leader you actually need?
That is the essential question worth mulling over in your next search.